Welcome all. This is the 88th interfaith meeting that we have been having. And this is to foster devotional character of our society and to bring mutual understanding among different religions. And I will do the acknowledging and honoring the indigenous land and people now. We acknowledge and pay respect to the past, present, and future traditional custodians and elders of this nation we call Australia, and the continuation of cultural, spiritual, and educational practices of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. We acknowledge Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander tribes were the first sovereign nations of the Australian continent. The Gadigal of Eora Nation are the traditional custodians of this place we call Sydney, and the Wangal people are the traditional owners of Burwood, where I live.
न जायते म्रियते वा कदाचित् न जायते म्रियते वा कदाचित् नायं भूत्वा भविता वा न भूयः नायं भूत्वा भविता वा न भूयः अजो नित्यः शाश्वतोऽयं पुराणो अजो नित्यः शाश्वतोऽयं पुराणो न हन्यते हन्यमाने शरीरे न हन्यते हन्यमाने शरीरे न जायते म्रियते वा कदाचित् न जायते म्रियते वा कदाचित् नायं भूत्वा भविता वा न भूयः नायं भूत्वा भविता वा न
sprinkle clean water on you, and you shall be clean. I will cleanse you from all your filthiness and from all your idols. I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit within you. I will take the heart of stone out of your flesh and give you a heart of flesh. I will put my spirit within you and cause you to walk in my statutes. And you will keep my judgments and do them. Then you shall dwell in the land that I gave to your fathers. You shall be my people, and I will be your God. Then I will sprinkle clean water on you, and you shall be clean. I will cleanse you from all your filthiness and from all your idols. I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit within you. I will take the heart of stone out of your flesh and give you a heart of flesh. I will put my spirit within you and cause you to walk in my statutes. And you will keep my judgments and do them. Then you shall dwell in the land that I gave to your fathers. You shall be my people, and I will be your God. And cause you to walk in my statutes. And you will keep my judgments and do them. Then you shall dwell in the land that I gave to your fathers. You shall be my people, and I will be your God. You shall be my people, and I will be your God.
The body is the physical or animal degree of man. From the bodily point of view, man is a sharer of the animal kingdom. The bodies alike of men and animals are composed of elements held together by the law of attraction. Like the animal, man possesses the faculties of the senses, is subject to heat, cold, hunger, thirst, etc. Unlike the animal, man has a rational soul, the human intelligence. The spirit of man has a beginning, but it has no end. It continues eternally. The rational soul, meaning the human spirit, does not descend into the body. That is to say, it does not enter it. For descent and entrance are characteristics of bodies, and the rational soul is exempt from this. Spirit never entered this body, so in quitting it, it will not be in need of an abiding place. No, The spirit is connected with the body as this light is with this mirror. When the mirror is clear and perfect, the light of the lamp will be apparent in it. And when the mirror becomes covered with dust or breaks, the light will disappear. The spirit does not need a body, but the body needs a spirit, or it cannot live. The soul can live without a body, but the body without the soul dies. Baha'i scripture, Abdul Baha.
I appeal to you, brothers, in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, that all of you agree with one another, so that there may be no divisions among you, and that you may be perfectly united in mind and soul. Finally, brothers and sisters, rejoice, strike the full restoration, encourage one another, be of one mind, live in peace, and the God of love and peace will be with you. There is neither Jew nor Gentile, neither slave nor free, nor is there male and female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. Then make my joy complete by being like-minded, having the same love, being one in spirit and one of one mind. Christian Christians.
O Son of Being, with the hands of power I made thee, and with the fingers of strength I created thee, and within thee have I placed the essence of my light. Be thou content with it, and seek naught else. For my work is perfect, and my command is binding. Question it not, nor have a doubt thereof. O children of men, know ye not why we created you all from the same dust, that no one should exalt himself over the other? Ponder at all times in your heart how ye were created. Since we have created you all from one same substance, it is incumbent on you to be even as one soul, to walk with the same feet, eat with the same mouth, and dwell in the same land, that from your inmost being, by your deeds and actions, the signs of oneness and the essence of detachment may be made manifest. Such is my counsel to you, O concourse of light. Heed ye this counsel, that ye may obtain the fruit of holiness from the tree of wondrous glory. Baha'i scriptures.
The one who strikes others is not a hermit. One is not an ascetic who insults others. Not to blame, not to strike, to live restrained under the law, to be moderate in eating, to live alone, and to practice the highest consciousness. This is the teaching of the awakened ones. Blessed is the arising of the awakened. Blessed is the teaching of the truth. Blessed is the harmony of the community. Blessed is the devotion of those who live in peace. Let us live in joy, not hating those who hate us. Among those who hate us, we live free of hate. Let us live in joy, free from greed among the greedy. Among those who are greedy, who live free of greed. Let us live in joy, though we possess nothing. Let us live feeding on joy like the bright gods. Buddhist scriptures.
I say to thee, weapons reach not the life. Flame burns it not. Waters cannot overwhelm, nor dry winds wither it. Impenetrable, unentered, unassailed, unharmed, untouched, immortal, all arriving, stable, sure, invisible, ineffable, by word and thought uncompassed, ever all itself. Thus is the soul declared. Govern thy heart, constrained and tangled sense. Resist the false, soft sinfulness, which saps knowledge and judgment. Yeah, the world is strong, but what discerns it stronger, and the mind strongest, and high over all the ruling soul. Wherefore, perceiving him who reigns supreme, put forth full force of soul in thine own soul. Into scriptures.
You had to unmute, Ali.
Sorry, Ali, I think it's a microphone problem. I can read it if you like.
Just a moment. Can you?
That's good. That's good. Yeah.
Sorry. The believers are nothing else than brothers in Islam. So make reconciliation between your brothers and fear Allah, that you may receive mercy. O mankind, we created you from male and female and made you into nations and tribes, that you may know each other, not that you may despise each other. Verily, the most honored of you in the sight of Allah is he who is the most righteous of you, and Allah has full knowledge and is fully informed. Arabs have no superiority over non-Arabs, and non-Arabs have no superiority over Arabs. You're all equal except by piety and good actions. I leave behind me two things, the Quran and my example, the Sunnah, and if you follow these, you will never go astray. The similitude of believers in regard to mutual love, affection, and fellow feelings is that of one body. When any limb of it aches, the whole body aches because of sleeplessness and fever. Islamic scriptures.
Know that the power and the comprehension of the human spirit are of two kinds. That is to say, they perceive and act in two different modes. One way is through the instruments and organs. Thus, with this eye it sees, and with this ear it hears, with this tongue it talks. Such is the action of the spirit, and the perception of the reality of man by means of organs. That is to say, the spirit is the seer through the eyes. The spirit is the hearer through the ear. The spirit is the speaker through the tongue. The other manifestation of the powers and actions of the spirit is without the instruments and organs. For example, in the state of sleep without eyes, it sees. Without an ear, it hears. Without a tongue, it speaks. Without feet, it runs. Briefly, these actions are beyond the means of instruments and organs. How often it happens that it sees a dream in the world of sleep, and its signification becomes apparent 2 years afterwards. In corresponding events, In the same way, how many times it happens that a question which one cannot solve in the world of wakefulness is solved in the world of dreams. In wakefulness, the eye sees only for a short distance, but in dreams, he who is in the east sees the west. Baha'i Scriptures, Abdul Baha.
Thou hast asked me concerning the nature of the soul. Know verily that the soul is a sign of God, a heavenly gem, whose reality the most learned of men had failed to grasp, and whose mystery no mind, however acute, can ever hope to unravel. It's the first among all created things to declare the excellence of its creator, the first to recognize his glory, to cleave to his truth, and to bow down in adoration before him. If it be faithful to God, it will reflect his light and will eventually return unto him. If it fails, however, in its allegiance to its creator, it will become a victim to self and passion, and will in the end sink in their depth. Baha'i Scriptures.
Know thou that the soul of man is exalted above and is independent of all infirmities of body or mind. That a sick person shows signs of weaknesses is due to the hindrance that interpose themselves between his soul and his body. For the soul itself remaineth unaffected by any bodily ailments. Consider the light of the lamp. Though an external object may interface with its radiance, the light itself continued to shine with undiminished power. In like manner, every malady afflicting the body of man is an impediment that prevented the soul from manifesting its inherent might and power. When it leaveth the body, however, it will evince such ascendancy and reveal such influence as no force on earth can equal. Every pure and refined and sanctified soul will be endowed with tremendous power and shall rejoice with exceeding gladness. Baha'i Scriptures.
Unite and bind together the hearts. Unite and bind together the hearts. Join in the chord all the souls. Join in the chord all the souls. Oh Lord, make these faces radiant through the light of thy oneness. Unite and bind together the heart. souls. Join in the chord all the souls. Oh Lord, make these faces radiant through the light of thy oneness. Unite and bind together the hearts. Unite and bind together the hearts. Join the chord of the soul. Join the chord of the soul. Oh Lord, make these faces radiant through the light of thy oneness. Unite and bind together the hearts. Unite and bind together the hearts. Join the chord of the souls. Join the chord of the souls. Oh Lord, make these faces radiant through the light of thy oneness.
Thank you, Siva, for putting together the program. And I'd just like to welcome our speaker now. And Dr. Ashit Mitra is currently the Hindu chaplain at Sydney University and at the University of Technology, Sydney. Professionally retired as a researcher, the principal research scientist at CSIRO, and as an academic, senior lecturer at Papua New Guinea Unitec. And my wife and I were privileged to meet Ashit at a social cohesion conference. I think it was about 3 years ago. And as soon as I found out he was was a Hindu chaplain, I grabbed the opportunity to learn what I could, and that was very helpful. And it's wonderful to see you again, Ashit. And your topic is intriguing, a secular approach to spirituality from a Hindu perspective. So over to you, Ashit, and I've enabled screen share if you need it.
Oh, thank you, Colin. I have a very sweet memory of that meeting. Can you hear me properly?
Yeah, very well.
Okay. And I was wondering myself how you found my name. I'm such a, small fella. I mean, I all of a sudden got the invitation to speak in front of this distinguished gathering. So thank you, Colin. And another thing is, after all these beautiful, juicy passages, 9 of them, I'm afraid my presentation may be a little too dull for you. So please pardon me. Just go for the screen share. The hymn, I just read one hymn in Sanskrit. Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityurma Amritam Gamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So from unreal, lead me to real truth. From darkness of ignorance, lead me to light of consciousness. From death, lead me to immortality. O Brahman, O God, Om peace, peace, peace. Now, this prayer represents the ultimate aspiration of humanity, going beyond death towards immortality. Of course, doubt will naturally arise whether it is possible at all. Scripture says it is possible, and scriptures are testimony of truth given by people who have actually realized this truth. Today, I gather a little bit of courage to speak about one philosophical model, an intellectual model that tries to understand intellectually whether this is a possibility or not. And then it suggests some ways how to achieve the immortality and how it might look. The concepts in here are not any different to the concepts presented in all this or most of these 9 passages that you have read. So this is the topic, secular approach to spirituality, as Colin just mentioned. Now, going straight to the point about this Sankhya philosophy. Sankhya philosophy is just one thing for clarification. Initially, just a few terminologies. It is a little boring. I'll go through it very slowly, and if necessary, I can actually come back to it. So, Sankhya believes that there are 2 entities of creation. One is Prakriti, another one is Purusha. Prakriti is one, and Purushas are countless. So that's the fundamental, that's a starting point. One Prakriti and countless Purushas. So what are they? Prakriti literally means nature or productive substance. So Prakriti is the material cause of creation. And Purusha, this term derived from Puri. And this Puri is an architectural term meaning city. So Purusha literally means a person living in the body. That is,
the one in the city. In this case, city, a body is being compared with a city with all its autonomous systems, as in a city with all these amenities taken care of. And in this body, the indwelling spirit is the Purusha. So in English, of course, we can translate it self, that is real essence, or the soul. And it is the intelligent cause of creation. So we have got two things needed for any creation, as you know. If we wanted to make a doll, clay doll, first of all, we need clay, and then the know-how, how to make the doll. So we have got two ingredients. One is Purusha, another one is Prakriti. Let's take it further. Purusha is changeless. It is ever free. It's inactive. And it is conscious. It is pure intelligence. It is not a mixture. It is pure intelligence. Prakriti, on the other hand, is unconscious. And it's a composite matter. It is a mixture by nature. It's a mixture. It's not pure. And by nature, it changes incessantly. So with changes, that means any creation has got a date of birth, and it has also, any manufactured good, for example, has got a date of manufacture. And also it has got an expiry date. So anything which is created must also be destroyed. This is the definition of matter. So matter is that is constantly changing, changeful, mutable, whereas the spirit is unchanging. It never changes. Purusha is metaphorically described as the male principle, and Prakriti metaphorically depicted as a female principle. And as it happens in our experience, creation comes about by conjunction of Purusha and Prakriti. Now, once we know that Purusha is unchanging, eternal, pure, there's not a lot to learn about it intellectually. But Prakriti is impure and changing all the time. So this is something that we can actually delve into using our intellect. So first question comes, Prakriti, when it is a composite matter, what is it composed of? Prakriti is composed of three gunas. These are the terms, the very important terms in this particular model. Gunas literally meaning two things, quality and string or rope. Like a rope is produced by many strands of strings. They could be of different strands. So By nature, it is a mixture, and what type of mixture it is gives it the quality. So it is both a quality and a mixture, and it has got, rope has a binding ability as well. So gunas are essentially basic forces, basic tendencies, qualities. Now, when we are talking about creation, then we are talking about something, a stage where creation wasn't done. What was there before creation? There must have been something there. Existence was not. But that doesn't mean it was non-existent, because something cannot come out of nothing. So something must have existed in a form which is almost equivalent to non-existence in our ordinary intellect. Shankha's proposition is Prakriti, which consists of three gunas. These three gunas are in equilibrium. They are in equal ratios, equal proportions. So three gunas are acting in such a way that there is no resultant force. There is no resultant tendency. One annuls the other. So there is no net movement, no net activity. This is the nature of Prakriti before creation. This is the primordial energy or primordial matter. Now, what are these three gunas? Three gunas are called Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. Very important in this model, this concept. And these concepts are there in just about all other Hindu philosophical models that are mostly or commonly used. Sattva literally means as it is. So Sattva is the power of illumination, to see, to discern things as they are. Therefore, it has got the tendency of buoyancy. It likes to be on top of everything. And it is associated with peace, poise. It is a static tendency in potential form. Just opposite to Sattva is Tamas. Just opposite. Sattva is buoyant, slight, and this one is heavy. And Sattva is illuminating, discernment. And this one is ignorance, delusion. Sloth. These are the sort of things, just the opposite of this. And these two, Sattva and Tamas, are both potential. They're not, they cannot act on their own. Whereas Rajas represents dynamism. It is the transformative force which can put a particular tendency into action. So it is associated with activity, passion, attachment. and of course, suffering of pain is after enjoyment. So these are the three materials that create Prakriti. But the primordial Prakriti, the primordial energy, is not expressed. You don't see any activity, you don't see anything. There is no expression, no manifestation. So it is in an unmanifested form. Because these three are in equilibrium. So how the creation takes place? Prakriti lures Purusha, as it were, pretending to be something which Prakriti is not. And it presents itself or herself as attractive to Purusha. In that process, actually, Prakriti herself binds herself to Purusha. And as that happens, the conjunction takes place, then these three ingredients, the constituents that make up Prakriti, that create the equilibrium of the Prakriti when it was unmanifested, that equilibrium is disturbed. That means one of these three, either Sattva, Rajas, or Tamas, predominates over the other two. When that happens, then Prakriti expresses itself in all diversities, in different colors, hue, sound, form. And what is the pattern of this change and division? From one, you are going into multiplicity. The principle of change is cause and effect. Remembering that effect lies dormant in the cause itself. So they are of exactly the same material, same type. Maybe I stop here for a little while and ask if anybody likes to clarify these definitions any further before I go.
Can I ask a question, Ashit?
Please, Colin.
Are these things we learn about through studying nature, or is it revealed knowledge?
Studying nature or reveals by itself? I mean, it's a very interesting question. I mean, when it is nature, obviously, the definition we have given for nature is matter, which is changeable. And when Prakriti is expressed itself from one Prakriti going into multiplicity, then whatever we see in the diverse universe, they are all matter. So if we wanted to study matter, then we study the pattern of change of the matter itself. That is one thing. And for spirit, we have practically no way of studying the spirit directly using our senses, because any instruments also don't help, because instruments are essentially devised, invented based on our 5 sense organs. the same principle. So Purusha has to be realized. So you can call this revelation. It has to be realized by eliminating the effect of matter. When you eliminate the effect of matter, only then the Purusha shines in its own glory. You know it, you don't need any intellect for that. You don't need any sense for it. This is in Sanskrit term, they call yogaja knowledge. Others are sense perceptions. But that one is yogaja knowledge. That is, you have created the perfect union with Purusha, the spirit.
So some people have questions now because you invited. Is this the right time, or should we wait?
Now, from so far what I have said, I invite question only for the clarification of what I have said so far, not what I have not said.
Is that okay if we pause now to clarify what's been said so far?
Yes, sure, please.
All right, there's three people. Young first, keep it brief there.
Yes, how are you, Asit?
Hello, Young.
By your description on the screen that I see right now, and you have explained between Sarva and Tamas, they opposite forces. They could not have equilibrium because this is the explanation as you said. So Sattva is lightness, elimination, discernment. Tamas is heaviness, obstruction, ignorance. So they opposite force, so they should never be equilibrium.
They are opposing, the three of them. They are always present. Sattva, what is it?
Rajas.
Yes. Yes, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. Sattva is, okay, so as you said, yes, light and illumination versus darkness. Now, what happens is, in reality, Young, your question was equilibrium, right, in particular?
Yes, I think they opposite forces, and therefore they should not be having any equilibrium because they have a target in a different way.
No, equilibrium, that's when you get the equilibrium, when two opposing forces exactly equal and opposite forces, they give you a perfect equilibrium. For example, tug of war. So if you are actually pulling the rope, two persons with equal force or equal strength, pulling at two ends of the rope, then what happens? The rope doesn't go anywhere, you see. So that is when they are exactly in equal ratio.
But that only for people like Buddha. Buddha can do that sort of thing.
No. That is a different question. What I'm saying here is in equilibrium that is before the creation. And Buddha was a created being. Any other person, they are all created beings. So we haven't actually come to what happens and the nature of the creation itself yet. We'll get to it next. So equilibrium has already been disturbed. Equilibrium was there when there was no activity, no expression of Prakriti at all. So we have gone past that one. And now there is no equilibrium. And that means that Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas are not exactly in equal ratios. the ratios have changed. At one point, one tendency dominates over the others. Another point, another things happens. That gives the variety. I'll come to that later on. Yes, Shadi.
Siva first and then
yes,
Shadi.
Shiva first. Sorry.
Let Shadi ask the question. Yes. Shadi, you can ask the question.
Thank you. I was fascinated by your description of the interaction between Prakriti and Purushas, the male force and the female force. And it reminded me very much of the writings of Baha'u'llah in a tablet called the Tablet of Wisdom, where he says, the world of existence came into being through the heat generated from the interaction between the active force and that which is its recipient. And I just wanted to hear your thoughts on whether you can see the parallels between this principle in Hinduism and the quote that I just read out from Baha'u'llah.
Active force, would you be able to repeat that one again? Active force.
I'll read it again.
Yeah.
The world of existence came into being through the heat generated from the interaction between the active force and that which is its recipient. These two are the same, yet they are different. And it seemed to me that perhaps the active force is that male principle of the spirit, and the recipient may be akin to the principle of Prakriti, as you explained.
Actually, according to this model,
yes,
Prakriti is the source of activities.
Oh, I see. Okay, I've got them maybe.
Yes, Prakriti is the source of activity, and Purusha is only consciousness. It's the spirit, it is only the consciousness. I'll come to this again when we come to the real life. So far, what I actually described is before creation, these things happen, so that we can actually take each part separately in its own light without mixing them. Now the mixing has taken place, and the equilibrium is broken, then anything. But in short, to answer your question, Purusha is the experiencer. Whatever we feel, even though it is sense-induced, sense only senses something, but there is a sense perception. When you actually, let's say, touch something, you know, if you touch a flower, you get a sensation. When you touch a stone, you get another sensation. That sensation itself, the feeling itself, is experienced by the soul. It is not intellectual. But intellect only says, from the type of touch, by in modern scientific description, by the type of electrostatic forces, that what is the nature of the thing that you touched. But the experience that you get out of that, it is due to Purusha, the soul. So we'll come to this again. Shivaji.
Thank you. I think probably due to the time, maybe we can continue and
We'll come to it,
Yes.
come back to it later on. Okay.
yeah,
So what we stopped here, that the Prakriti has manifested in all diversities. So how does the manifestation take place? Does it have any rule? Yes, the rule is cause and effect. That's how we do the bookkeeping of the changes. That this is due to this, we do this and it happens. If we jump into water, we get wet. So this is the thing. Now, based on this idea, the whole diversity is accounted for in this pattern. Just remember, Prakriti is a mixture of matter or mixture of energy, and Purush is a pure substance, inactive. It is active. So when this one changes, Purush never changes. The first change from Prakriti, this is the primordial energy, is the great intellect, let's say cosmic intellect. It has got the blueprint for all the minds in the world. When it comes to individual level, it is buddhi, we call intellect, buddhi. Now, Mahat, this is the term, great, Mahat means great, the great intellect. So, intellect is full of sattva quality, illumination, sattva quality. But as you must remember that Prakriti has a mixture of three different elements like Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. And all these modifications here, they are all modifications from Prakriti. So they are all mixtures of Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. And depending on what they are, one particular guna dominates over the others. Here, intellect is predominantly Shaktic in nature. Great intellect, and then when it comes to individual level, it becomes buddhi, because intellect is discrimination, the power of discernment. So when you exist and when I exist, I see you and me as two different individuals. Once that differentiation comes, then comes the concept, the idea of ahankar, egotism. I exist, that's ahankar, that's what it means. I exist. And everything else that you see, they're different from you. Now, you asked Buddha, you see, buddhi, we use the term is intellect. Buddha came from this buddhi, somebody who lives at the level of intellect is Buddha. That's the definition. But usually we don't live at the level of intellect. We live at the level of egotism, ahankar, I like this, I dislike it, I'm afraid of this, etc., etc. So this ahankar also has got also characterized by those three gunas. And when the gunas, the dominant guna is tamas, then we get some modification in this series. First modification here is tanmatra, essentially the sense perception. Now, if we are thinking about the anatomy, let's say this intellect, these things, they're all controlled by our brain and, our brain. Tanmatras is also associated our brain activities, the way our sensing mechanism work in the brain. So tanmatra is just that. It has got the power to sense different things, like sense of perception or smell perception, sight, taste, touch. What's the other one? Taste, touch, hear, sound. So these are 5 different tanmatras, or sense potentials, are there within our system. And once the sense perception of sense potential is there, then if there are external elements there, materials, we can sense them. So this whole external world is composed of 5 different elements. They are basic elements. You can say these are the 5 elements which are, or at least 4 of them, let's say, or 3, in the periodic table in chemistry. I was actually a chemist. So this is the ingredient for the physical world, and also mental world in a way. So this is the inanimate materials. That's how we sense. So one thing we can conclude from this, that whatever we see here, etc., these are our mental construct. We don't know exactly how the external world looks like, how it smells, exactly we don't know it. It's our mental construct. So our brain and our whole system is calibrated that way, that we see things as they are. And the state of egotism, when it is other things like rajas and is dominant, then we have sattva and rajas, particularly rajas dominant. Then we have got 5 sense organs. They are actually related to tanmatra, sense organs, but they are the organs first, and then those organs have got various points. And for example, there is a red flower. So red flower, we see the color, we smell it, we see the depth of this. Essentially, all these are the interactions of light and shade. That's all. So these are sensed through our sense organs. And in the sense organs, these are the tanmatras that actually tell us what the depth is, what's the color is, all these things, the distance, all these sort of things we can. 5 sense organs, nose, etc., and 5 organs of action. These 5 organs of actions are, the hands and feet. Hands for doing things, feet for for space travel, and speech. Then other two for evacuation and procreation. So the combination, different combination of all these things, according to the dominance of Sattva, Tamas, etc., it determines our state of mind. Oh, another thing I haven't mentioned, there is in these 5 sense organs, there is another one called manas. It's also another sense organ, but it's an internal sense organs. Now, how do they work? How do they work is all these 3 things, buddhi, ahankar, and manas, there are 3 are internal organs. And if you imagine that whole mind, so these are the ingredients of the or constituents of the mind. Imagine the mind to be a lake, and the lake has got turbulence. Those turbulence, the waves, are the thought processes. So what happens is, whenever we interact with the external world, then those waves are created. Let's say somebody tells you, oh, Colin, you are such a wonderful fella. I seldom see anybody like you. Straight away, Colin, you have a different emotional state, very much gratified, very happy. You see the person's face as if the person's face becomes nicer and voice is nice too. You develop love. On the other hand, if the person says, oh, etc., etc., he said something. Now, manas is the gatekeeper of all this interaction. So if somebody says, Colin, you are a great fella, manas heard the voice, saw the face through the sense organ. So manas plus 5 sense organs, these are the interacting mechanism, sensing mechanism with the external world. This only senses and gatekeeping. Now, when you get a message like, Colin, you are a great fella, that sound and sight, manas tells that to buddhi, the intellect, for explanation. I heard this sound and this type of face. What do you make out of that? Intellect has got 2 functions. One is discernment, discrimination. Another one is memory. So it has got a memory bank. So it can actually remember things. It can and store things, can store memory and retrieve memory and discriminate, analyze. So when manas says, what does it mean? I heard this sound, Colin is good. Intellect says, oh, this person likes you. Then ahankar jumps into it, saying that is my experience. The whole thing is mine. So ahankar is very pleased and tell manas to reciprocate with appropriate gesture. So you actually say something like, you know, yeah, thank you, etc., etc. This is how the ego works. And the opposite case if somebody said, Colin, you are so hopeless, etc., in a much stronger way. And Colin, again, the manas gives it to intellect for interpretation. And he said, oh, this is very angry and doesn't really like you at all. Ahankar is ego. You again claim it as your personal experience and you become very angry. How does he or she dare to say this kind of things for me? I'm such a brilliant bloke. So it says that to manas to give the appropriate, deliver the appropriate response. And it can be a fight where all the other organs of action come into play. So that's how it works. Now, a simple illustration of this is the mind is a lake, and you say, somebody said, Colin, you are hopeless. It's like pelting a stone in the lake, and you get a ripple wave like this. Wave could be big or small, depending on the intensity of it. If it's a pebble, small. If it is a big boulder, then it is a very big wave. So what happens is, when the mind is turbulent, disturbed like this, then we lose our poise. This surface is disturbed. The soul, which shines, if it shines like the sun, just imagine the soul is the sun, and it falls on this turbulent water. You can't see the bottom of the lake with that light. You cannot see essentially anything. It's all scattered and it's all gets jumbled away. This is usually our mental state. This is a simple wave, but because we are interacting thousands of times per second, then the sum total of all these waves is very huge. As a result, our mind is never calm, on which we see the soul reflected. That's why we cannot actually, most of the time, detect the presence of the soul. Lots of people say, I don't believe in soul. It's rubbish, because since our whole system is so clogged up with this kind of wave that we can't actually see what's underneath, what's below it. But if you can imagine that you eliminate this one, the formation of the wave, how can you eliminate the formation of the wave? That's the question. Now, go back again to our scheme that whatever this turbulence is happening, these are the thought processes. So Ahankar claims it as its own, and it delivers its response accordingly. Now, what happens is, when somebody says something or you see something and you get excited about it, and it creates that wave in the mind, that's because Ahankar is directed to the sense organs. And sense organs are designed to be outwardly. And it takes the manas with it, like mind and sense organs, they work together. For example, if you are reading a newspaper, I'm so engrossed because there is a war going on next door, and you wanted to know what's happening. Somebody comes and touches you from the back and you wouldn't notice, you wouldn't feel the touch of it, because your mind is engrossed in reading. So sense organs, unless the mind, the manas, is attached to it, the sense organs don't actually work. Like looking and seeing, that's the big difference. Looking is just looking through the eyes. But eyes don't function if you are not seeing it, meaning manos has to be joined with that sense organ to sense it. So you can still do this, but if the ahankar does not come into play, then this turbulence does not happen. So the idea here is that we think that we are made up of the 5 sense organs. Whatever we hear, touch, everything, we respond to it. And we think that is related to our existence. Because the type of waves that we have, sense-induced type of waves, there are essentially 3 different types. One is attachment, love. Another one is aversion, hatred. Another one is fear of loss. So attachment produces desire for love. It has got 2 different things, like love. Love is when somebody says, Colin, you are wonderful, you feel the love towards that person. That minimizes the distance of separation between you and that person. And if love is deeper, then you lose the distinction between you and that person. That's how the condensation, cohesion comes. But hatred is you wanted to go away from each other, because then the fear factor may come, that they call it flight and fight. If you can fight it off, you will, that's when you bring your all sense or organs of action and to fight it off. If you sense that you have a chance to win, but if you sense that you have no chance of win, then you think you should just use the feet and go away. And all this because our body preservation is the only motive for our living, and the ego is directed towards the senses, the body, and the sense driven completely. And in that way, everybody is an enemy. It can be. Look at America. Everybody has the gun and they want more guns because there is no trust, very little love in there, hatred. If you don't kill him, he will kill you. So diversity and distance, it increases. So it's the importance, many of those passages you read, those juicy passages, had those love factor in here. Love will condense things together in here. And ahankar doesn't come so much because you see oneness in them to that love. And once that happens, then intellect gets purified and you get very close to the great intellect on which Purusha is fully reflected. On where Purusha is fully reflected. So there are 2 ways in here for living. One is to live in biological world. We are all human animals. So we are driven by our urges. Another one is to make use of the intellect and with love, minimize this distance. We're not scared of anybody because your nature is Purusha. Once you are living in intellect, your nature is Purusha. And Purusha is unchanging reality. It never dies. It is the Prakriti. It is created and it will die. So this is the whole picture. So in the Hindu philosophy, that because we live egocentric, sense-centric, so we have to be born and die again and again until we start living in an intellect-centric way. Then we associate ourselves, that ego is turned towards the Purusha. Associate me with Purusha. I am the spirit. I am not the senses, not the body. Once that sense comes, you are actually liberated from the clutches of Prakriti. That's the end. I can stop here, and I'll be very happy if you ask questions.
Thank you very much, Ashit. And I'll invite questions now. If you could use the reactions button to raise your hands. Even though there's a lot of terminology I'd never heard before, I could see the concepts. I could recognize some concepts there, and there were things mentally I could build on. And I can see if I want to ask a question as well, I better raise my hand because Siva got in first. Siva, over to you.
You have the button, you don't need to raise your hand, you have to raise your voice.
Siva, you're first.
Yes. Well, probably we are trying to understand the different religious concepts, and as a Baha'i, I believe that they must be saying the same spiritual principles. So probably that's why Shadi raised that question, whether there's any similarity or parallel between what Baha'u'llah said. But I wanted to ask on this particular slide that you have. So this Purusha, there are a few questions. So one is Purusha God? That we talk about God, is it Purusha?
According to this particular model, there is no mention of God. There is no mention of God in this particular model.
Right.
And according to this model, there is one Prakriti for everyone, but Purusha is the soul.
Okay.
And there are innumerable souls.
Okay.
Now, next question, of course, would come whether the soul is one or souls are many. There are other philosophical approaches in Hinduism. For example, Vedanta is one. That is probably gives you more or less all the answers. But other one, which is very related to Sankhya philosophy, is the yoga philosophy, which is essentially the same as yoga, as Sankhya, as you can see. But in here, yoga philosophy has introduced one concept here, Ishvara. Ishvara is the personal God, meaning somebody. Ishvara is also a Purusha, but a special Purusha with a special power. Like Purusha in here, individual Jiva they call, like us. We have Purusha, but we are under the influence of Prakriti. But this Ishvara, you can call this God, is not under the influence of Prakriti, but it can control the Prakriti. So in here, in this yoga philosophy, you have an alternative route for spiritual practice. In Sankhya, your route is only intellectualism. That this is what you have that intellectual conviction. You direct by repeatedly convincing yourself this world as we see around is constantly changing. But our feeling that I exist, this is due to the soul, because Purusha is not aware, it has, Prakriti is not aware, it has no consciousness, whereas Purusha is conscious. So when we are conscious of our existence, the root, the source of this consciousness is Purusha. So if we use this particular conviction and try to steer our egotism in such a way that it is directed to Purusha, associated with Purusha, which is indestructible, in that case, you remove your factor of ignorance that you are bound to the body. You are not. Body will perish, Purusha will not. So, but this is a hard one to practice. Concept is fine, but it's a hard one. So the yoga philosophy brings the concept of Ishvara. In here, there is an root, a very strong suggested root here is the devotional factor and surrender factor. What you do is you still have the ahankar, you still have the ahankar, but you still have the ahankar, but you direct your ahankar towards your personal God, saying the God is the creator and God created me. So God is my guardian. I am not the boss. I just do things as God suggests me to do. I am only a flute and God is the flutist. I cannot generate any beautiful music without the flutist. So you surrender to the will of the God. Make your will the same as the God's will. That is the surrender, that is the devotion, and that root is a very powerful root.
The model that you presented earlier without Ishvara,
yes,
that was from Vedantas.
No, that is Shankha philosophy.
Yeah, but what they are from any holy scriptures?
Holy scriptures means, I mean,
Vedas.
Vedanta, yes, Vedanta philosophy. I mean, there are essentially 6 main philosophical schools. There may be many other subdivisions, of course, sectorial beliefs, but there are 6 philosophical schools. One of the oldest is Shankha philosophy, the one I just described.
Right.
And Shankha and yoga philosophy very similar. And then comes Vedanta philosophy. So today we mostly use Shankha, Vedanta, and yoga philosophy. Yoga is more of a methodology, practical system. It gives you the step-by-step way to prepare yourself. It is very similar. It is step-by-step way. And Vedanta differs from Purusha in the sense that Vedanta differs from Shankha model in the sense that Purusha in Shankha is countless. Vedanta says no. Vedanta says absolute reality is only one. Shankha philosophy says absolute reality is 2, Prakriti and Purusha. But Vedanta says only one reality, and it's called Brahman. Brahman, you can say, essential characteristics of Brahman is Purusha. So there is only one soul, the universal soul is like a huge conflagration in the Upanishad. That is an example given. A huge conflagration, huge fire, and you see lots of sparks. We see that in bushfires too, innumerable sparks. Are the sparks different from the fire? No. Sparks are the same quality as the fire, just that they are small, quantitatively. So our individual soul, when they are under the capture of Prakriti, it looks like it is separated from the big fire. But once you get rid of the Prakriti through the practice, if you can, then you see your soul and the universal soul. There's no difference. It's like a little room which is bounded by partitions in 4 different ways, walls, 3, 4 walls, and up roof, and the floor. If you actually get rid of all of them, then the space inside the room becomes the part of the space. It's the same space everywhere. So you lose the identity of that particular space. That's the relationship between Shankha's Purusha and Vedanta's.
Okay. The other question I wanted to ask is the manas. Is that mind?
Manas, mind is a term which includes all these 3.
Oh.
And manas in here, it is actually resolved into, in Sankhya philosophy, is resolved into 3 components. Manas, Buddhi, Ahankar, and Manas, these 3. Okay. Manas, Ahankar, and thing. Manas has got only that responsibility, is a gatekeeper of all the sense signals that the sense organs bring in, and any organs of action that come into play to convey any message from you to the external world. Manas is the coordinator of all this, and it gets the direction from Ahankar. Ahankar goes to Buddhi for advice. What does it mean? This is the Shankha model. Essentially, this model is accepted in all 3 main philosophical.
Okay, one last question. Sorry, Colin. You mentioned that the primordial existence, there was a balance between these 3 gunas, and when there is the change or disturbance, then the Prakriti or the
comes into being. Yes.
Can we, scientifically they say that the Big Bang was the thing that actually the creation of the world was coming to existence. Can we correlate this disturbance from the primordial energy to the creation as the Big Bang?
I mean, you can call this a Big Bang when the Prakriti and Purusha unite.
Right.
And the equilibrium of these 3 gunas are disturbed, then there is, you can say, it's an explosion, the manifestation of Prakriti, you can say that.
Okay.
And then after that, the observer comes into this, in this equation with the sense and all these things. So we can start observing, and Prakriti then plays the role of time also, because time is change, and when Prakriti is inactive, there is no time, no change. So you can call that as a Big Bang.
Thank you.
But I wouldn't be able to elaborate on that. It's beyond me.
Thank you.
It's very interesting. I didn't know that there's this branch of Hinduism, and that, as you said, there's 6 major accepted
Philosophical.
philosophical views within.
No, these are the philosophical schools only. There are
Yeah.
lots of the sects
Uh-huh.
built on that. This particular Sankhya philosophy that we are actually talking about. Sankhya philosophy, you have heard of Tantra, I suppose. Tantra is derived from here, Sankhya philosophy.
Is it a problem or a challenge within Hinduism that there is a branch like this which doesn't believe in God or just isn't part of the model?
No, there is no such challenge in Hinduism. Hinduism, you believe whatever you like to believe. There is a seventh school of Hinduism, I didn't say, is called 100% atheistic. They say there is nothing afterwards. It says, in Indian terminology, it says, in Sanskrit, they say, Rinam Kritya Hritam Pivet. It says, you just enjoy yourself as much as you can. You eat the good food even if you don't have money. Just get a loan and enjoy yourself. Because once you die, that's the end of it. There is no loan repayment responsibility. That is all accepted in Hinduism. It's all individualistic. Whatever you like to believe, you believe. And this is an intellectual model, so nobody really minds it. And essentially, there is no conflict here, because you call it God or not, what matters really? As far as we are concerned, on this material plane, God and Purusha, there is no distinction. Only if you actually remove the effect of Prakriti altogether, only then you see Purusha, only one Purusha. That's what Vedanta says. There is nothing, not even Prakriti. Prakriti is just a shadow of Purusha.
So we can learn something about unity and diversity from
Hinduism.
Yes.
This is it's a all diverse system converge here. Yeah, there is no conflict.
I think some of the questions I wanted to ask Perry has asked, because I heard about this Sankhya philosophy, Vedas, Upanishads, and I didn't know that in Hinduism they believe that there is something without the God. So I just really wanted to ask from where, which scripture or which philosophy. I think you answered that in that part. But the Saiva thing, which comes under which one? Is it
Shaiva? Is they worship Purusha.
Yeah,
they worship Purusha. Oh, sorry. So Purusha, you can say, I don't have the picture to say. Creation model, you know, there is a picture of Kali. Have you seen the picture of Kali?
Yes.
Mother Kali, goddess Kali.
Yes.
And you have seen the goddess Kali. And goddess Kali is very dark, and she's dancing, and her all the human hands and these are put together to have her skirt, and all the skull, her garland is a very frightening picture. And she's dancing on the corpse-like figure of Shiva. So Shiva is inactive, but that is the principle. And Shiva, Prakriti, is the manifestation of this of the principle in practice, as if Kali is saying to Shiva, and Shiva actually, Kali has a tongue sticking out as if in shame, because she is emanating from Shiva. She is on the platform of Shiva, on the principle. But she's demonstrating that principle in different ways, saying to Shiva, Lord, how beautiful you are, how pure, beautiful you are. And when your story is depicted in this world, see how ugly it looks. That is the picture of creation.
But this yoga doesn't have anything to do with meditation.
Oh, yes, yes. Yoga is exclusively meditation. Almost exclusively meditation. And yoga makes the meditative process a lot easier. This is also meditative process because that's how you actually discern the difference between Prakriti and Purusha. Through meditation, you can only figure out that Prakriti is disappearing when you are concentrating on Prakriti. You don't know what Prakriti is. Only thing you are left with is awareness. See if you can hold this picture for long enough, then you are a realized soul. Essentially, this is what Sankhya is doing. It's a total contemplation. But yoga provides different routes of devotion also, as well as contemplation. Yoga is very much contemplative. It's Ashtanga yoga, the 8-step yoga process, which is very similar to Buddha's 8-step process of Buddha liberation. It's essentially the same. This is a meditative process. This is the 8th step of contemplation.
Thank you.
Shadi.
Yes, I had one final question, and it just touches on the questions asked earlier by Colin and Mr. Perry. Just wondering, these terms, the gunas, the sattvic element, the tamas element, the manas, rajas, they're all mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavad Gita.
Yes.
And so in various chapters. And also I love the hymn that you shared at the beginning of your presentation, the Asatoma. So is this philosophy that you're sharing with us partly based on the principles set out in the Bhagavad Gita?
Bhagavad Gita emphasizes mostly on Vedanta philosophy, but Bhagavad Gita is also a summary of all the major philosophical schools, including Sankhya, and of course yoga. And mainstream of Bhagavad Gita is, although it is on Vedanta, actual practice, actual principle is Vedanta, where actual reality of creation is one, which is Brahman, and its nature is Purusha. They use the term Brahman, also use Purusha also in some particular cases. And Prakriti is just a projection of it, an illusory projection of it. It is not real. It changes. It's not fixed. So Bhagavad Gita actually subscribes to this. But when it comes to methodology, yoga philosophy is not so much a philosophy as it is a methodology. And yoga methodology is very much part of Vedanta as well. So Bhagavad Gita talks a lot about yoga and essentially emphasizes on the importance of devotion and surrender. But if you actually go to Vedanta, it can use devotional route also, but Vedanta is again very intellectual in nature and contemplative also. So yes, Bhagavad Gita has got Vedanta philosophy as well. Yes, Vedanta of course, and yoga philosophy also. Very emphatic presence of yoga.
And so of these different paths to liberation, the path of action, the path of knowledge, the path of renunciation, and surrender, the path of devotion. Which one in this philosophy that you've described?
This is part of knowledge, yoga of knowledge.
Okay. Thank you very much. That
This is
answered my question.
purely intellectual, yeah.
Jung, we just have 1 minute, but please go ahead. But you're muted.
Oh, it is muted, yes.
Yeah, Mr. Asif, I just want to mention quickly about COVID-19, and a lot of people fall into mental illness. And a lot of them, for the last few years, there's a number of people who had attention deficit hyperactive disorder. And so the doctor said that a lot of people have engaged into that sort of illness, and that sort of illness will not be included disability program of the nation. So therefore, what I'm saying, the soul and the body are very well connected, and a lot of people, they don't even know that whether they have a real sickness of ADHD or not, and they just listen to the doctor and get a wrong treatment. And it was announced by Canberra National Press Club, and so therefore it was supposed to be a true story. So therefore, if the body died of the anxiety and wrong treatment of medicine and no funding, so therefore the souls will say, I'm not die, your bodies die, but I'm still alive. So is that fair?
Very interesting. Yeah, sure. But the thing is, you can say that body doesn't, body dies and soul doesn't die. But if it is just a very empty word, it doesn't really have any meaning. Because soul, like we individuals, we have a body, and this body is all made up of matter. So we are strongly under the influence of Prakriti and the gunas. Now, if we want to know what Purusha is, we'll have to use our body and work our way up to manifest the effect of Purusha in us. That is, we'll have to rise from animality to divinity. And it is only possible if you have the body. Now, if you let the body die, then your chance to manifest the divinity in you is lost also, at least in this life. You wait for another, quite some time before you get another body and come back in a different form. So that's the question. Therefore, when it comes to the medical reason of things, you are actually, if you don't know how to deal with Purusha, then one thing is best to do is not to talk about it and just see how you can pacify Prakriti and try to make the Prakriti in a way that makes your body, makes you keeps it on the road, and working order, so that you have a chance to reflect the effect of Purusha in your life. But as you can say, that if there is a mental problem somebody is facing, then the concept, at least, that our real nature is Purusha can be very helpful, provided there is enough enough power to receive this message, and that depends on the state of the guna, dominant state of the guna, in that particular person. If the dominant state is tamas, then this concept will bounce back. It will have no effect. It will have no traction.
Actually, do you have time for one more question? From
Yes,
Ahmed?
I have time. You can, go on. We can stay here the whole night if you like. Yes.
Maybe one more question. Thank
Yeah,
you.
please. Yeah.
Ahmed, your turn.
Colin is
Yes.
my turn.
Yes, Ahmed.
Okay. Thanks for your talk. I learned a lot about this scheme of Samkhya. Do I pronounce it correctly? But I was just wondering whether when you look at all different religions, they might have different terminologies,
Yes.
but the concept is the same, that is teaching us to walk the path of will of God.
Yes.
And meditate towards that and try to walk that path. Do you say is the same in
It
all?
is. It is essentially the same. And
Yeah.
Hindu belief is God is one, but the paths are many. God is one, but the paths are many, because its analogy is, let's say, if you are going to airport, depending on where you are, you walk, you travel to the airport, Sydney airport, I mean, accordingly. So if you are living in Burwood, you take one route, and if I'm living somewhere else, I may not take that route. I may take another route that I know. But effectiveness of this route depends whether at the end we both reach airport or not. And that is one question, answer to your question. And Hindu philosophy is each individuals are distinctive in their own way. So there is no uniformity.
So you would say, would you say that we are here in this life to learn how to walk the path of the will of God? So
it is, of course, yes, it is possible. Yes, that's what we are trying to achieve.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is our
That's
objective.
the purpose of this life.
Yes, in this life. In this
Yeah.
life, not only the path, walk the path of God, you are all walking the path of God, otherwise you wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is, some gets closer to Purusha than others.
So I mean, learning to walk the path of
Yes. We are all learning. We are all learning, but we are learning in different stages. I tell you one example that Sri Ramakrishna gave. It's a beautiful example that somebody hasn't seen an ocean. Then he goes to his guru, the teacher, and guru says, okay, you go to the east, keep going. And then when you come closer, you will sense some difference in the type of breeze that touches your skin. And if you go further, then you hear the sound, a different sound. So you follow it, don't stray, keep going. Now, then you go to the ocean, the shore. It was on a hilltop, and you get fascinated by the sound of it, by the look of it. You are face to face with the ocean. You may not stop there. You may want to touch the ocean. And then you may like to swim the ocean and be one with it. Now, we are walking towards the ocean. Some of us have walked enough and got a little breeze, then we think, yes, I got the testimony of what the truth is in my Guru's statement. Guru says, when you get closer, you see a soothing breeze. I got it. So there is the ocean. I now believe it. I don't really need to go there any further. So you put your tent on there and just enjoy yourself. Some are not happy, they wanted to go further. The next batch of people heard the sound and say, oh, that's enough. I don't need to go any further. So you see, we are in very different stages in our walk, even though we are all walking the same direction.
Yeah, Baha'u'llah has got a similar thing in one of his writings, the Seven Valley, which describes the path of the seeker towards God, and it goes into different valleys in order to reach that objective.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Very
Thank
nice.
you. Yes, thank you, Ashit. That was quite amazing. I feel like I know a lot more about Hinduism now, and especially what you've explained today. And more importantly, I think I better understand the title of today's talk, A Secular Approach to Spirituality from a Hindu Perspective. It makes more sense now.
Thank you. Thanks. This is, I appreciate this approach because I am a chaplain at the university. So I can actually speak to anybody who comes for meditation or whatever, that I can actually explain what's happening in a secular way, just like they do in engineering or, chemistry, physics. So this is the approach. You don't have to presume anything. And this is all our experience. We experience all these things in our own life. So you try to, you get a reasonable explanation of your experience, and then it gives you a power of deduction of where it might lead you to.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And Siva, did you want to say any final words?
Well, once again, I would like to thank Dr. Ashit Maitra for coming and giving this talk. Very few people have come from the Hindu perspective. And also, I just want to mention that how I found you. I was looking for speakers from different backgrounds and looking for younger people. And then I went to the University Student Association and the leaders of the Student Association. While I was searching, I found the chaplains in the university. So along with you, I wrote to other people as well, but you are the only one who responded.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much, because it is a great honor and great pleasure for me to be speaking. And my idea of chaplaincy, that's how I went to be a chaplain, that I don't know much. And best way to know is to teach. So that was the only motivation that I had. I wanted to know a little bit. So why not go and try to teach? So in that process, you learn a little bit. And so my idea is, I don't know much still, but whatever I know, if I can share that with somebody who doesn't know anything, then I think we are both benefited.
Thank you.